children that have chronic lower back pain, we need to seriously consider that they don't have a stress fracture. This is a spine, obviously the pelvis and the spine through here. I'm just going to take the spine off. We oftentimes see in this age group that they have a small fracture that forms in the base of the back through one of the bones. Children have soft bones, and if they have lower back pain, they're very susceptible between the ages of about 13 and 14 through to 16 when they're increasing their load, especially in running activities, twisting football activities, that they can produce a stress fracture in the lower back. In older people like myself and like parents, you're more likely to get a disc problem, like a slip disc they'd call it, or a degenerative disc. But in kids, they're much more likely to get, as they have soft bone and growing bones, stress fractures, and we call these a pars defect. How do we know that it's a pars defect? We just don't see a lot of chronic discy problems in children. We tend to see the bone problem, and the diagnosis, the investigation of choice here is an MRI. It's highly sensitive to pick up any stress reaction through here. My suggestion when we see children who have especially pain when we extend in their back, not so much in forward flexion, but it's the extension part, we have to be highly worried about stress fractures through this area. And an MRI is a very simple and easy way in detecting this. We think that the data suggests that in kids that have had chronic back pain that's lasted for more than 2 to 3 months, 50% of them will have a stress fracture or a bony edema through here. Treating this is extremely important, and early detection is extremely important. If this develops into a large fracture, this goes on to be called a spondylolithothesis, and we can actually get a slippage at the back that can then unfortunately produce long-term problems, and the fracture doesn't heal. The fracture, this little pars defect, often is congenital. It's when we're born, we can have a weakness and be made worse by activity. It manifests in that really age up until 16 to 17 is the most likely age group. Early detection is important with the MRI, as I mentioned. Good core stability program we get them to do for 5 months. So one of these problems with this is that children who have this condition will rest it for 4 or 5 weeks. It feels much better, then go back to sport, and it will continue to produce a problem. I believe from an experience perspective and what the data suggests, that we need to give them at least a 5-month period, 4 to 5 month period of no loading activities, running, jumping, return to sport. At around about the 4 to 5 month mark, we get them doing a pre-jumping program, start a little bit of activity into an interval running program. At 6 months, then we can get them back to playing, if they're a football player, playing football at 50% of the load that they were doing before. So if they were playing football 3 times a week, they go back to 1.5 times a week. And they do that reduced load for another 6 months until 12 months. If we get this wrong and they continue to have chronic lower back pain, they'll have pain for the rest of their life. So it's so important that we get this right and detect it initially very well, and secondly, treated with a good strengthening program early, in the early stages. And you'll hear lots of people talk about re-MRIing these at 6 months to give us an indication about return to sport. We think the re-MRIing of these is not very accurate, and thus we tend to give them a good extended period of time off sport. Injections of PRP injections, corticosteroid injections, and a whole gamut of different injections we don't think are that useful for these. Bracing the back is, in this situation, not that useful because we get too much muscle wasting, and thus giving them a good extended period away up to 6 months, and then most importantly reduce their load for another 6 months by about 50%, often will give us the results that we need. Thanks.